So this is PFF's mock draft for the Lions. They did a 5-rounder. And they traded back, obviously, because they had picked 29 and they picked 30 in this one. And they got Quinyon Mitchell. And I have 2 things to say on this, and I'll let Booner share his thoughts. Number one, I don't know if it's even possible that Quinyon's still there, even if you trade back at 30. And number 2, I hope they don't take a corner in the first round.
Jeff, you want me to be honest with you? If Brad Holmes trades back to 30, gets some assets, and somehow Quinyon Mitchell falls to 30, I don't think, and I get you don't want to get a corner, you want a DN, I get that. That's the second best corner probably in the draft, and he's supposed to go top 15, top 20. So if that happens, and you said whose mock draft is this? ESPN?
PFF.
This is PFF.
If this happens, this is an A+. If I'm being just dead honest. If Quinyon Mitchell falls to 30 and you trade back, get some more assets, and if you somehow get more assets and get Quinyon Mitchell, I think that's one of the bigger steals in the draft, to be honest. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brad somehow pulls that off. I'm kind of more shocked that Quinyon Mitchell fell to 30.
Yeah, if we're being real, fellas, and I'll ask you guys this: what position would you prefer? Let's say Quinyon's on the board. Maybe you just prefer to take him, and I would agree with that if he's still there. Like, hell, you have to in a way. But if it's not a corner, we all agree it's edge or anybody. I saw a couple of people say guard in the first round, which I don't think is happening.
You know what? Remember when Nick came on the show a couple days ago and he mentioned, I know a lot of people too, D-end is kind of an option. Do you remember when he came on and said that this isn't really a deep defensive end class to where you take one in the first round? Because we were talking about the positional value and all of that for D-end. I don't know. I think if a Quinyon Mitchell's there, like a corner, like you best player available, and if there's not a lot of D-ends available, I get the offensive line, but I think if the second best corner in the draft is available at 30, you have to take that. You have to.
Yeah, I think it's really just best available for the position of those 3 in need. I really wouldn't go guard or offensive lineman. I would try and build from the defensive edge, defensive interior. But like if a guy like Quinyon Mitchell is there, I do think you take that, and I just don't think you really question it. And like Booner said, if you can get more draft capital too by trading back and somehow finessing this trade off, I think there's no way you don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed if they took if they took Powers. I believe he's out of Oregon, the guard hybrid center.
Yeah.
If he goes in the first round and the Lions walk out of there, I would be smiling from ear to ear, because that just shows me that, yeah, it's not the most exciting pick, but we're taking the players that we need to take to make this thing last. To what Jeff was saying earlier, I would almost prefer an interior offensive lineman over the cornerback. I know a corner is a bigger position of need, but if you are taking a corner at 30, and if Quinyon falls to 30, there's probably a reason he's falling to 30. There's probably going to be some developmental things. If you can get an interior guard, if you can get a center at 30, a lot of the times, those guys are day one starters. Look at Creed Humphrey for the Chiefs. He's a former all-pro center. He's a great center. He's going to be an all-pro again in his career. Second-round pick. You can look at numerous. You go around the NFL. A lot of the guards, a lot of the centers, they're second, third, fourth, fifth-round picks. So if they go and they get one in the first round, I'm not going to be mad at it, because the value's there. The value is there, especially if Brad's taking them.
Yeah, honestly, I think you did a good job of breaking that down. I think when I first heard guard, you're like, ugh. But if you get a guy like Powers, who he's a center, he can play guard, like he's versatile, there is a ton of value in that. Like I get that. If you have a guy that can play 2-3 positions on your offensive line, to me that's worth especially a late first round pick. I'm with Nick though. If let's say Quinyon's off the board and there's nobody there that Brad's in love with, absolutely. I can see Brad also trading back into the second round, like Nick brought up. Like I think that would be a great, because then you acquire more picks, more draft capital, and you're giving more ammunition to an absolute sniper. So like I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
I'm cool with that as well. Steve Wild says Powers definitely has all pro potential. I know a lot of people are high on Powers. Like that's who I see a lot of Lions fans talking about as well. And so, hey, I could see potentially a fit there. Let's see. K Boogie says Quinyon Mitchell is a part of the Booner path.
Hey,
he indeed is.
Devin says trade up for JJ McCarthy. Devin,
no, hey,
damn it, Devin.
That would be disaster. I'm sure
bada bing, bada boom.
Be going crazy.
Says I want Quinyon Mitchell, sign Stephon Gilmore, and re-sign Mosley.
Stack
Load
that
up.
room up, man.
Load
Stack
it
that
up.
room up.
Dark Flame says interior line, defense, or offense. Yeah, and that's again like people forget early on. At least when Brad was drafting players, it was built from the trenches. I think he goes back to that a little bit this year. Let's go to the next pick. Picked round 2. Oh my gosh.
6'4", 300.
Defensive
Pronounce
lineman,
this one, Jeff. Pronounce this one.
Defensive lineman Rook Orho. What the hell?
Orho.
It's got to be Orho. No, Booner, I think you almost got it. Orho. It's a Horo, I think.
Horo.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got to be a Horo.
I'm gonna go watch some game film on him, and I'm gonna hear how the announcers say it. I'll get back to you guys tomorrow.
Steven said just call him Oreo. I don't know.
Like
that.
there.
There we go. There we go.
Oreo.
Yeah, so we'll call him Rook. All right, is that?
Yeah.
All right, Rook, defensive lineman out of Clemson, 6'4", 295. Hey, I saw defensive lineman. I haven't really dove into film on guys that are top 60 picks or anything like that. This would be top 62 pick. I don't know about Rook. I see defensive line. I'm on board. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. I don't know the prospect like that. Again, I'll have to go dive into it a little bit more. But defensive interior, if it's not with the first pick, I think it has to be the second. I think if you take an edge, a corner, whoever you take in the first, if it's not a defensive interior, I think is a lock in the second round because the value's there. And that's where you find a lot of the good interior guys around the league. Not all of them are first-round picks. Yes, the upper echelon ones are. But when you start looking at second-round picks over the history of the draft, there's a lot of guys. I mean, even look back to Ashawn Robinson with the Lions. He wasn't anything crazy, but he was a second-round pick out of Alabama that was very solid. Went to the Rams, was a key part of their defensive line that won a Super Bowl. So you can find guys in the second round, especially around this area. I think this is where they need to address the interior of the defensive line, even more so than an edge. Yeah,
and you know what, too? Jeff, kind of what you said a little bit ago about kind of the addressing it from the inside out, and on offense, that's what kind of they've done the last 2 or 3 years is they made that offensive line. Defensively, I think on the defensive side, it's the same thing. Like this year, you have to get an interior or edge rusher. I'm kind of with Lukas though. Second round, I mean, take a shot. I mean, this dude 6'4", 295. I mean, just keep kind of stopping the run there. I mean, I think you just kind of build on that, to be honest.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off of what Nick said the other day, assuming that the defensive edge class for this year isn't all that great and that Brad's maybe going to venture out and sign someone, it wouldn't be a bad idea to, with your second pick, to go and beef up the defensive interior. And this guy, 6'4", 300 pounds, and he's good on the run defense, adds to what already is a Lions strength. And obviously maybe he might be able to help out with the pass rush with Aleem getting so many looks in the middle. So I don't mind it at all. And if the defensive edge is that bad, then like Lukas said, you might have to look to defensive interior first and then kind of build through free agency and address the edge.
Yeah, at least when you're looking at defensive tackles, and I know for this specific player, I don't know much. I would just say this, preferably if you're drafting a defensive tackle or defensive lineman, it's got to be someone that can get after the quarterback. Like that, the whole I think that's
so?
That preferably. Like when we mentioned Kalijah Cansey, like why was everybody infatuated with the idea of drafting Kalijah Cansey? Because you put him next to Aleem, and he's like kind of the polar opposite. Where instead of there's question marks for his run defense, but man, he's a hell of a pass rusher. Am I off there?
See, I don't think you're off. Like what you're saying is not incorrect. Like you can never use more pass rushing ability. But after watching Aleem this year and seeing how he did obviously he lost a lot of weight coming into the season, seeing how he was able to get to the quarterback, if you get a big body in there that commands double teams, like that's what I'm not saying they expected Broderick to start day one and make an impact, but that's what they're expecting out of Broderick. A big guy to take up double teams. I think it's so you can free up Aleem McNeil, so you can free up Aiden Hutchinson. You can free up bookend on the opposite side. If you get a big boy in there that's 330, 340, and that commands a double team, that gets Aleem McNeil on one-on-ones. And if he does that, it's barbecue chicken. So it's almost like if you take just a run-stopping, a Grover Stewart type of guy, that helps it out, not on the stat sheet, but it's just overall, it can change the dynamic of the defense.
Why not get a guy that can do both, though? Like to Jeff's point, like you need to get to the quarterback. That was the problem this last year, especially with quarterbacks that can run the ball.
Right.
Why get a guy that can only do one thing? Like when you probably are going to have options to be able to get someone with both. It does say here he's going to develop into more of a pass rusher throughout the rookie season. You're at the point though, and this is kind of the Project Martin point as well, the 3rd round pick, to where and Lucas, you said this yesterday, that you need guys that can kind of step up and do this stuff right away. And you can't draft guys that you're going to have to develop. Like you've already did that with Broderick. Now you have to go get a dude. And that's what it comes down to. And if you don't think you can get a dude like that in the interior, then you go take someone else at a different position and you go in there and you go draft someone else and you go get a defensive and an interior guy in the free agency pool. And that's kind of how Brad's got to look at this is, hey, if you don't feel like you can go get a guy that can make an impact through the draft in these first couple rounds, then go to free agents and find a guy in a different position who can impact this game. Because you're at that point now. Like the Chiefs every year, they're not drafting. Like, yes, they want to develop guys, but in those first couple rounds, especially when you're picking towards the end of the first round, you're starting to get really, really particular on you have to get guys that can help right away. And that's what we're at now. Like, and I say it all the time, we're on the 49ers level, we're on the Chiefs level, we're on that level to where now when you're drafting these first couple rounds, you're expected to hit on these guys, and these guys are expected to make plays for you year one. So if this guy's not going to do that and he's just a run stopper, yes, that's what you're really good at right now. That's what you're already good at. Like you need someone to help with the pass rush, and maybe you have to just go get an interior in free agency. But maybe he can. I got to watch some film on this dude.
If you're doing it in free agency, I just beg that we're not going to keep recycling the same old defensive tackles like we've been doing. We need to go out there and like go and actually get a player. I'm tired of seeing the Benito Joneses and the Buggses and shit. Like you need some.
hey, don't disrespect the
great people. Don't hate them by any means, but you need to line someone up next to Aleem. It can't be a 35-year-old guy. Like it's just not the way to do it.
Real quick, can we hijack this real quick and show the clips that we were watching earlier with the defensive end out of UCLA?
Yeah, you know what? Speaking, well, I could. You know what? I got you. Hold on.
I say we cook that up.
Yeah, dude, can you explain to people like who it is? You mentioned to me earlier, like this dude's legit. And
let me pull up his name so I don't butcher it. But he's projected. Honestly, I don't think he's going to be there at 29. But if you talk about a guy, I could see Brad trading up and getting. Let me hold on real quick. It's because I don't want to butcher his name. The defensive end out of UCLA though.
Latu, right?
Latu, like Leotu, I believe is how you say it. But this man,
we're having trouble with names today.
Like
we got to figure this name situation out.
All I know is if you're in the Pac-12 and you're a crazy Samoan, you pan out in the NFL. Your ceiling is extremely high. And watching this guy, his burst off the line is insane. His bend his leverage against offensive tackles is insane. His way to split double teams and get to the quarterback, and then his athleticism to even make plays in the pass game. I would be thrilled if Brad traded up and took this guy. If he traded up in the top 15, obviously I'm not going to be mad if Brad doesn't get him. But if you want to talk about a guy that I see playing for the Detroit Lions on the opposite end of Aiden Hutchinson and making a difference, it is this man right here. What did he have, Jeff? 13 sacks last year?
Yeah, in the Pac-12.
Yeah, he had against Caleb Williams, one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the country, had 2 sacks against him. And you'll see here, maybe if we show that part of it, but he splits a double team. The tackle didn't stand a chance off the line of scrimmage. The running back tried to help out and chip, but he didn't stand a chance. He split it and took Caleb down with one arm. I mean, he's honestly probably the most athletic defensive end in college football.
Yeah, this is some crazy.
This man is a monster.
Tape.
Yeah,
right now.
Oh, jeez.
That's what Hutch does.
Yeah,
and then look at him on the return.
Yeah, this
dude is a monster.
He's projected what, first round in the
he's projected like top 15ish, but it's because he's a little bit undersized for a defensive end. Like he almost could look like an outside linebacker, but if you just watch this man's hand skills off the line, like you didn't even see the offensive lineman put his hand up because he already swatted it down.
Yeah, it's damn near impossible to block this dude. I mean, he's and again, like the offensive line play, we watched it, the Oklahoma State game, he played really well. In Oregon State, excuse me.
Yeah, and Oregon State had the best offensive line in college football this year. Booner, you can attest to that. Their offensive line, they have numerous guys. Look,
that's the play. That's the play.
Yeah. Can you go back?
There's one more.
Or no?
Yeah, they'll rewind it right here.
I mean,
Jeez, splits a double team.
Yeah, he's legit. And there's a lot of good options, like great options there, at least later. And he's a first round pick, but those guys are all gonna go early.
Yeah,
Especially for guys that are, if you can stop the run, if you could do what he's doing, which is just consistently win your one-on-ones, like that dude's going top 20. So like that.
I don't know how I feel about Brad trading up yet. I don't think I've kind of fully thought about that yet, but I don't know. When Nick came in and talked about trading back and getting more assets for Brad Holmes, didn't hate it. I to be honest, I guess that's something that in the next couple of weeks we could talk about and go through. But obviously, if you get a guy like that who's going to make an impact like that, it's just what are you giving up then? Because you don't have as many assets as you've had in the past. So that's where I'm interested to see.
So here's the third round pick for PFF to kind of go back to. They take guard Christian Mahogany.
Mahogany.
Jeff is struggling.
We're having a day.
Why do they give us
crazy Samoan name?
Yeah, why do we get the most complicated names? I think
that one's not that complicated, but the other two.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
Regardless, all right, here we go. They say the Lions field one of the best NFL offensive lines. A big reason why they're still playing football in late January, but with Jonah Jackson and Graham Glasgow set to hit the free agent market, there could be some shifting going on with the unit, even if they both return. Glasgow's age means they could use some youth in there. Mahogany plays with an in-your-face style that the Lions seem to have built their trenches around. He's one of the more powerful interior offensive linemen in this class, earning PFF's pass blocking grade above 80 in each of his past 2 seasons. All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, back to what we were saying. That's why we love the chat. It's why we love the chat. Hold us accountable.
But regardless, like there's the player. They take a guard in the third round. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
It's right about the round and right about the pick that you would be okay with them. Kind of Brad Holmes picking his guy for the offensive line. So don't hate it at all. You're going to have to address it one way or another. So get whatever guy you think's the best available at the best spot for him. You're going to have to get one eventually.
Hey, boys, if we're being real, I think this is where Brad should take a DB. Kirby Joseph, iffy. He hasn't missed in the third round when it comes to DBs. Go get a guard. Go get either an edge or a defensive interior. Get your DB here, Brad. I think especially where his draft is, especially in the first round, it's extremely offensively heavy. Go get your offensive guard first in the second or the first round and get your DBs now. This is where Brad cooks in the third round with DBs. I think this is where you should keep doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think like that's a thing. I mean, maybe it is, but like just because it is in the past in the third round doesn't mean every year he's going to get a DB in the third round. It's going to hit. I just think like a guard, you have to get a guard. You have to get someone on that offensive line. And if you go, where do they go? What was the first pick? A corner. You get a corner. And you got a defensive. You got a defensive lineman. I think you have to. What did we say yesterday? Like, Lukas, we have so many we have a loaded DB room right now at the moment, right? Like, what are the 3 things that right now that you need is a corner, a defensive lineman, and someone on that offensive line to kind of back and just in case you can't re-sign Jonah or Frank goes down, whatever it is, you need kind of that reliable piece to keep this whole thing and this offensive line built up. I wouldn't mind them going a guard in the third round. I wouldn't. No. Like, address the needs unless you're doing it for agency. Address the needs. I get your thing that you got some DBs in the third. I mean, you could probably get a DB in the third or fourth, and it's the same thing or close to it. I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of leaning towards like if you're taking a DB, third round has been like the bread and butter for Brad.
That's what I'm saying, man. The third
just because he's going to be 4 in the past doesn't mean it's just every third round he's going to find a great DB.
Hey, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So what you're going to do? You're going to keep doing it until it doesn't work and then just like waste a pick? Like,
no, but all I'm saying is
be smart. Like, if there's not a DB there, go after someone you need and someone that can play. Like,
you're right. All I'm saying is I prefer them to get a guard, especially just because, like we talk about the back end of the first round. I would prefer a guard at the back end of the first round, preferred to a corner. And if they take a defensive edge or interior in the second round, obviously go corner in the third. I'm not going to be mad at it. Take whichever order you want. Brad Holmes can decide. Obviously, he's right. But I'm just saying I would rather go guard before corner, if that makes sense. Kind of vice versa of what this PFF draft is saying.
Yeah, and we're not saying that you should wait till the third to take a DB. I mean, you could, but I'm just saying for some reason, second, third round, like after the, I wait till I don't want a DB in the first, preferably, Booner. That's all my point is.
No, I'm with you on that.
Okay, then we're good.
I'm just saying, hey, if the draft played out the way it has so far on this mock draft, and you kind of still need to address that guard and that offensive line position, I don't think it's a bad idea to go guard here and take the mahogany, the wood flavor here.
Well, look at the hey, so at pick 73, they get a guard. At pick 93.
Oh, guess what?
Hey,
round 3.
Kyrie
that's what we wanted, Jeff. That's what we wanted.
Corner out of Oregon. And you know what I love, guys? I love when DBs played wide receiver. I love it.
So does
it.
Brad.
And here's another guy. Because hands, baby, hands, instincts. Most DBs, you don't have hands. That's why you're playing DB. If you had hands, you play wide receiver. So if you're a wide out or a wide receiver and you switch to corner, hey, Kyrie Jackson. I didn't watch. I got to go back and watch him as well. But it says here he played wide receiver in high school, then switched to corner while attending Fort Scott Community College. He was on Last Chance U.
Hey, you know what that means? I'm not even trying to be funny. And this is for a lot of JUCO guys. That goes right into the Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes grit mentality. JUCO guys, to make it to JUCO and then you end up being a third-round pick out of Oregon potentially, that says a lot about a dude's character and his ability to overcome circumstances.
Hey, corner in the third, I'm cool with it.
They doubled down. They doubled down. 2 corners in this draft. Round 1 and round 3. That's kind of crazy. And not crazy, but like that's a bold statement.
And you'd have to assume, Boone, too, like they're going to sign a corner in free agency, right? Like you're not going to draft 2 corners, be like, all right, guys, let's roll. Like 2 rookie corners out there playing. I would assume they sign a veteran, but we shall see. It says right here on PFF, this past season was his best. His movement skills are intriguing for a player with his length and press coverage abilities. He allowed just 206 passing yards and a sub 50% completion percentage. Hey, he can lock up. He plays well. Yeah. I'm cool with it. All right, round 5, the last pick.
Playing on Oregon's defense, that
edge rusher.
Oregon's head coach, Booner, what's off the top of my head is Danny Payton. Am I tweaking? Or Danny Manning, right? For Oregon, their head coach.
No, Dan Lanning. Excuse me.
Lanning. Yeah.
Dan Lanning.
His defense, that's a very physical defense. So taking a DB out of there, he's going to be good against the run. He's going to be good in man coverage. That'd be a smart pick.
Yeah, and hey, he was the DC at Georgia, so defensive-minded guy. Round 5, they don't have a 4th round pick. So there you go. Round 5, pick 167, edge Brennan Jackson out of Washington State. It says he isn't just a pass rush specialist with his career pass rush win rate hovering around 11%, but he has a strong bull rush and doesn't shy away from contact. He feels like the kind of football player the Lions gravitate towards as a depth player on the edge. I mean, yeah, round 5, taking an edge. Like,
take a shot at someone.
Yeah,
hey, by the way, see you later, Rick. Appreciate you for joining the show, man.
Shout out, Rick.
Shout out. And I think assuming this draft, like the way this panned out, they are like assuming that they addressed the edge in free agency because I think there's no way that you wait this long and you draft 2 corners. And then obviously I hope you still sign a veteran corner. But the way this, and obviously these mock drafts barely have transparency to what happens, and with Brad Holmes or really any GM, but like assuming they did this one, they would have definitely addressed defensive edge in free agency.
I'm gonna say this too. In that text there, it says he isn't a pass rush specialist with his career pass rush win rate hovering around 11%, but he has a good strong bull rush and doesn't shy away from contact. I don't know if I like a guy like that. Like I want a dude that's going to get after the quarterback. Just personally, it's kind of like the interior situation. I want an edge rusher who, and I get it. And then there they say he's kind of like a football player or a football guy that the Lions would gravitate towards. That I think is like what they've gravitated towards the last 3 or 4 years, and we know at this point. And I hope Brad, and we trust everything in Brad. I hope he knows that's not what we need anymore. We need to get after the quarterback. You have to get after the quarterback. Don't go get me a guy that could do a cool bull rush and just make something happen in the run game on the edge. Just go get me someone who can go get to the quarterback. That just, to me, it's like end of story. That's all I want. I just need someone to get to Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy or whoever it is in the NFC Championship game or with Super Bowl. I just want someone who can go get to the quarterback. Please. That's all I'm asking for.
But you got to think too. You got to think too. Well, one, they doubled down on two positions, right? They took two corners and two edges. But two, if you're drafting someone in the 5th round, like he's more of a project. Like, let's be real here. Like he's more of a guy. He's more of somebody that you feel like with the coaching you have that can be developed into a good player.
Would you rather have a project though that doesn't pass rush well, or would you have a project that can pass rush and you could turn him into something like a James Houston and go dominate? Like, what would you rather have, Jeff, going into this next year? Because look at James Houston. James Houston was a late round pick, and guess what? He was a great pass rusher, and he went out there and did it. I don't want a guy who can't pass rush on the edge. Like, go get me some dudes who can get to the quarterback and finish the job. And I don't care if it's a project, a 5th round pick. Just go get me a guy. Am I wrong? Anyway, like is that a crazy statement? I get what you're saying, but
you're not wrong. You just have to like Colby Sorsdahl, for example. Like, you kind of know, like, I don't want to say maybe a project would be disrespectful, but like, there's work to be done with him. Like, and
but you have the luxury though.
Well, hey, what do you mean? You have
the luxury on the offensive line to get a guy like him later in the draft, and
and that's why they doubled up with another edge. But I don't know how I feel about that too. If you're doubling up, I guess you do it on the defensive line. I think that'd be my preference. Yeah. I don't know about 2 corners because you're gonna like assuming they sign one, right? Then you draft one. I think. Yeah. Excuse me. Especially, that would be that corner right there. That's
especially if you're taking that corner that early. I don't like doubling up on it. If you're going to take a corner that early, then I think you take 2 defensive edges, or you take a defensive tackle and defensive edge. Like, there's no way you double up and your first pick is a corner. That's just no.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you guys the grade they gave them on this mock draft. So there's the 5 rounder. We're going to do a full 7 round draft. That's the grades they gave.
I do really like the fact that potentially like doubling up on DB, especially get with that extra pick in the 3rd round. But I think we're all on the same page here. I would almost prefer double up on the DB with the 2nd round and the 3rd round pick, or even if you want to go both in the 3rd round, I'm not going to be mad at it. But doubling up on DB, I think, especially with the injuries you see at the cornerback position,